Ron Simmons is being credited as being the first black world champion, and he was a good wrestler, in my opinion. Back in the NWA days, was there any code that prevented black wrestlers like Ernie Ladd and Thunderbolt Patterson from being the NWA champion?
Well, no, and first of all, Ron Simmons Ron was a tremendous athlete and a Florida State Hall of Famer, and I'm taking nothing away from him, but Ron wasn't the first black world champion. That was probably Bearcat Wright in the 60s in Los Angeles. And the only reason that he didn't get a longer run was because, of course, he didn't want to do a job when the promoters asked him to do a job. And he even double-crossed Freddie Blassie, who was his good friend. And when he was supposed to drop the title and didn't drop it, shot on poor Freddie. And that's when the famous instance where they sent Judo Gene LaBelle out under a hood as a challenger, and Bearcat Wright saw what was happening and just said, fuck this, and left the ring and got in his car and drove away and left the territory because he was a huge box office draw, and he would have gotten more opportunities at more runs had he not gotten the reputation for not only not wanting to lose when the promoters asked him to lose, but double-crossing guys in the ring. And then I'm sure, and somebody, Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, somebody that may hear this will fill me in on who other was a recognized world champion that was an African American. But Ron was the first one in WCW. No, there was no unwritten rule. Thunderbolt Patterson disqualified himself not only because he was very militant in his thinking with promoters, but also because he had a habit of leaving territories when he'd get miffed because he wasn't getting paid right. And also because anybody who saw Thunderbolt Patterson knows that he could talk people in the building like crazy, and he had a very great short-term appeal. But if he was in a territory for too long, his shortcomings, which were his lack of wrestling ability, not working ability, he was a great worker, but he was a lousy wrestler. His matches weren't really good. He was over because of his talking. So he never should have been a world champion in the style of the Dory Funk Juniors and the Harley Races and the Pat O'Connors and the guys in the NWA who could work with anybody and who were master in-ring technicians. And there was never any I'm sure individual promoters, Mr. George C. Culkin of Jackson, Mississippi, didn't even like to have the Junkyard Dog in his main events when JYD was selling out for him because he was such a fucking racist. But overall, they would have put the belt on a guy that was fucking green or polka dotted if he could draw money consistent with the people that they had in that spot. And, Bobo Brazil, the biggest drawing African-American wrestler from the 50s through the 70s. He had the great look and he was a pretty decent promo, but his matches, no, you wanted Bobo as an attraction. I'm not trying to justify behavior. I'm trying to explain reasoning why that there was not. Ernie Ladd should have been a world champion based on his work and based on his talk and based on his business ability. But at the same time, Ernie was such a big draw that he could work 3, 4, 5 territories simultaneously and make his own schedule and call his own shots and make more money probably than he would have if he'd have been world champion and tied down to the NWA. So maybe, Ernie wasn't under consideration because he probably might not have taken it to begin with. You can go on with that. And also there's the case that from the 50s through the 80s, there were not a lot of black wrestlers that were at that level, that were getting in the business, that could go to that level. And was that because there was racism, or was that just because there wasn't that many people in the spot? I don't know. But I don't see anybody that was massively overlooked that should have been a champion and wasn't just because of their color. Hopefully,
shall we move?
I've brought some type of closure to this. And JYD, my God, Bill Watts pushed him to the fucking moon. He was drawing for a little bit of a run there, as close to the money in Mid-South Wrestling as the NWA World Champion was drawn nationwide. But that's the thing. You had to keep Dog's matches short because he had the look and he had the promo. And he was a great athlete, but his work was suspect. So you need to keep it short and get in and out. Would JYD have been an NWA champion? Oh, God, no. because he couldn't work with any. You had to work with Dog. He couldn't work with you. And that makes sense to the people who've been in this business for a while. So, were they overlooking JYD, who would have been a golden goose as NWA champion? No, he was right where he needed to be, drawing the big houses he needed to draw in the place he was drawing them in. But if you took him out of that environment, that wouldn't have worked either. There's a lot of things to consider. So, no, there was no rule that the NWA promoters got together at the convention every year and said, well, we got this black guy. He'd draw us a fucking fortune, but he's black, so we can't make him champion. No, fuck no. Jesus Christ.